Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Wade Watches. I'm Wade. Welcome to yet another fresh out of the movie theater review. You guys know I love doing these things, where today I just got through watching Sonic the Hedgehog 3 in Dolby Cinema, and my thoughts are as follows. I don't know why I included that. My thoughts are as follows. So first thing to say is that this was something I wasn't initially planning on seeing. My mindset this month has very much been, I'm just going to wait for Nosferatu to come out. I don't even care about anything else. I genuinely don't. That was until I found out that Keanu Reeves was doing the voice of Shadow the Hedgehog. That's kind of the only thing, honestly, that won me over, made me even want to see this. Prior to watching this one, I did not see those first two Sonic the Hedgehog films when they initially came out. I did grow up on some of the video games. I did play a couple of the video games, but I'm by no stretch of the imagination a super fan of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. I've always been more of a Mario guy, I guess. But I did play a couple of the games. I have like a layman's knowledge, like a beginner's knowledge of the characters and lore, but I'm not a Sonic the Hedgehog super fan, but there is a bit of that nostalgia. I do recall playing a lot of the games when I was a little kid. I had a friend of mine who slept over who brought home a couple of Sonic the Hedgehog games, so those memories are in my head. I did have a bit of nostalgia as well. So yeah, decided to go see this, decided to catch up on those first two films, which ended up being better than I thought. And having just watched this third installment, I can say that by far, by a clear mile, this is the best of the live-action Sonic the Hedgehog movies. This really knocked it out of the park in ways that I honestly wasn't expecting at all. I can't believe how great this was and how much I enjoyed it, genuinely. So to sum it all up, just in like, just to like put it all in a, in a neat bow, all in all, I'd say this worked really well because they carried over everything that I liked about those first two films, everything that elevated those first two films from just being like silly for the kids' entertainment to being like, wow, this is actually really good and really profound. They carried over everything I loved and got rid of everything that I didn't enjoy so much. All of those silly like human character moments that they have with James Marsden and crew, James Marsden and company, are not present here. This is a Hedgehogs movie through and through. Like, yes, of course, the human characters are in here. They return from the previous first two installments, but there is no like wedding subplot, which took too much time from that second film, excuse me. There is no road trip plot where, oh, I gotta experience, Earth before I leave here. Nothing like that. This is a Hedgehog adventure through and through, featuring the humans put to the side, with the exception, of course, of the irreplaceable Jim Carrey, who is all but made Dr. Robotnik or Eggman, as he's nicknamed, his own. Of course, there's more Jim Carrey here. There's literally two Jim Carreys here, but the human characters don't hijack the show. They're kind of, they're condensed, they're in the background, so I really, really appreciated that. And also, this is quite the darker installment. That's the thing that elevated this film for me. They carried over that sense of heart and genuinely wholesome moments and moral lessons, because you gotta have a lesson in a kid's movie. That's just how that works, from those first two films. But they also raised the stakes here to a point where, of course, no spoilers, not gonna give anything away, you guys are safe with me, but let's just say something happens here. There's a moment where I was like, Jesus Christ, you guys are really not playing around here. You are really taking this seriously, and I love you for it. Yes, have real consequences, have real stakes, show that this isn't just some sort of game. No pun intended, no joke intended there. Show that this isn't some sort of game. There are consequences there, and in some cases there are permanent consequences, and I respect them for doing that here. And I can definitely see why that's necessary, because again, only a mild exposure to Sonic the Hedgehog in my childhood, but I did play the Shadow the Hedgehog game. I do know that he's very much a tragic figure, Sonic's mirror opposite, has a dark backstory, not as, lighthearted and preppy as our hero here. And so I understand why they kind of went with that darker, more intense tone for sure. And it definitely works with the movie, it works for the story, and it works for introducing this new character to this live action franchise. It all really works. Moving on to negatives, I did say for the most part, almost completely. They got rid of those things that I didn't like so much from those first two movies, where you're doing the fish out of water thing. You have, some, the silly fart jokes for the kids. You have, maybe a bit, you're featuring maybe spending a little bit too much time on these human characters. They mostly get rid of that, but I will say there are moments where they cut back to, it's one of those things where something like really, really intense, something that's meant to be taken very seriously, something that's meant to be really rough happens, and then they cut away to a joke. They cut back to Jim Carrey doing something funny. That bugged me in a couple of parts. That bugged me in a couple of scenes. They don't do it constantly, but they did it enough to the point where I was like, come on, let the moment rest. Let it breathe. What are you doing? Also, it's another one of those cases where it seemed like they obviously wanted to have that epic third installment there. They wanted to have all these characters here, but I found that there were characters that were introduced that maybe have 30 seconds of screen time. They say their piece and then they're out of the movie for good. Why do you even have them in there? Because I'm trying to remember. Well, you know what? Never mind. I was gonna say, well, there were characters from the first two movies that aren't in this one. I'm wrong. All the human characters from the first two movies are in this one, so scratch that. But still, why have everybody come back and introduce new human characters if you're not really gonna do anything with them? And there was even a point where there's this. This is a new human character where it seems like, okay, they have an agenda, they have a secret plan here, but then they're gone. What? Maybe make the movie a bit longer, because this clocks in at just under 2 hours, an hour and 50. First film was hour and 30 minutes. Second one was actually over 2 hours. This one could have easily been over 2 hours. You could have more. You could have, featured this one particular character a bit more, because it seemed like they wanted to really do more with that, and they don't. It's just like, okay, well, I guess that problem is solved. So yeah, that kind of annoyed me, because it really felt like they were trying to do more with that. Any other negatives? No, not really. Other than that, this really worked. This was a solid watch. It was another solid animated film following Transformers 1. This really was a solid story. It doesn't talk down to its audience. It's not as wacky as those first two films that feature all of those fish out of water hijinks and what have you. This is a story that is being taken super seriously. It's super edgy. It's pretty edgy, actually. No, I'm not gonna lie. This gets pretty gritty at parts. But it works, so it's super gritty, super edgy, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. Have a story that's quote unquote, I guess technically the demographic here, they're definitely targeting the little ones, the kiddies. Have a story that's obviously targeting the kiddies, but make it enjoyable for everybody. Animation doesn't exclusively have to be silly children's entertainment, and like Across the Spider-Verse, like this year's Transformers 1, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 understands that, definitely more so than those first two films. I respect the hell out of the filmmakers for realizing that. And wrapping it up, I'm going to go ahead and give Sonic the Hedgehog a solid 9 out of 10. No, it's not a masterpiece, it's not perfect, it's not a 10 out of 10, because they never really surprised me. It kind of follows that tried and true path. And in fact, there's even something that they did in the second movie that they do the same exact thing here. So it's not like treading super new ground or being that innovative, but it's still really well executed, and it's a really strong installment, and it's definitely the best story in this live action Sonic the Hedgehog franchise by far. And wrapping it up, I give it a 9 out of 10. This has been another edition of Wade Watches, and I will see you lovely people next time. Namaste. And if you've seen Sonic the Hedgehog 3, let me know what you think in the comments below if you want to. I'm not forcing you to, but if you want to, please let me know. Want to hear your thoughts. Namaste.